football fans, and welcome to the Onside Kick. My name is Ricky Widmer, and I am joined by only one person today. I'm joined by Dave today. Mark couldn't be here this week, Dave. A rare occurrence. Usually it's me and Mark going double tandem on this one, not me and Dave.
I was going to say, I think I missed out on the most podcasts, so it's going to be a little different. No Mark, but Ricky sticking in there. Nice. Playing through the pain today.
Playing through the pain. I am feeling a little under the weather, but hey, we got to get the football news out to you guys. And this week, DeSean Jackson finding a new home still in the NFC East. He's going to be with the Redskins. We have CJ 2K being released, the Bills and Bucks making a trade, and of course, NFL draft. But Dave, last week we did talk about DeSean Jackson and the Washington Redskins, kind of a team where I was like, okay, makes sense, but kind of came out of nowhere, I think.
I feel like he wanted to throw it in the Eagles' face. He's like, guess what? You released me, but I'm going to go out there and I'm going to beat you twice a year, put it right in your face. I mean, it's a really talented team, and I think it's going to help out RG3 immensely that he's going to have such a great deep threat on the wide receiver core. So I like the move, but as far as motivation, like I said, the only thing I can think of is like straight up spite.
Well, and not just that. The first thing I thought of was, of course, whenever you go to a team that's in the division, oh, well, okay, the Redskins wanted to sign him mostly because, hey, now we have an insight to the Eagles that we play twice in a season. But more importantly, the Eagles are different than any other team because of that Chip Kelly offense that we saw last year that took the NFL by storm. They made the playoffs where at the beginning of the season, everyone was like, well, how are they going to do with Chip Kelly? Are they going to do well? Now the Redskins have the biggest insight to this offense where DeSean Jackson can say, yeah, I'll tell you everything that they do, how they're going to approach each and every play, each and every situation.
Yeah, it's a total Belichick move. I mean, it's partial mind game, but I mean, you can't forget how good DeSean Jackson has been. It was his best year ever. And, the Eagles had to let him go. So I think the Redskins, their eyes just kind of left like, okay, downside is he's got some personality issues. Obviously didn't click in the locker room. Maybe some outside shady business on his personal time. Upside, coming off a career year, he's a number one wide receiver, top 5 deep threat in the league right now, and just phenomenal talent to help out your young quarterback. Pair him up with Pierre Garçon, and you have got a great 1-2 combo out there.
Well, and I mean, not just that. Look at who they have at tight end. They have Fred Davis, who, to me, is one of the you have the elite tight ends, and then you have that group that's
you have Jimmy
just
Graham.
below. You have like the Jimmy Grahams, the Vernon Davis, and right below him is the Fred Davis category. Those tight ends. And Bennett. They're all in that category.
Yep, that second tier. And it's not even the second. It's like 1A and 1, They're not that far back. They're very talented.
And I think the only thing keeping this Redskins team from success now that, like you said, you have Garçon, you have Davis, now you have DeSean Jackson on the other side, you have Morris and Halou in the backfield.
It is an absolutely loaded offense that is just putting the pressure down on RG3.
That's the only question mark. Can RG3 stay healthy?
And not only healthy, just
can he make smart moves?
Yeah, that's the big thing. Is smart moves on the field, taking care of his body, taking care of the ball. And, absolutely what I loved about it, first thing, like he came out and did the opposite of Vince Young. He's like, hey, look, we haven't won anything yet. Don't get too excited. We still got to play all these games,
Well, and I mean, another thing with the Redskins is with DeSean Jackson signing, one of the things he said he liked about the Redskins, new coach, Jay Gruden. He's going to be taking over his first ever head coaching job. He's always been a coordinator, first head coaching gig.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. Jay Gruden knows his offense. So I'm going to be curious what kind of setup. He's got a lot of toys to play with.
I think he worked with a pretty good wide receiver in Cincinnati.
I mean, he was okay.
A little bit of A.J. Green over there.
Okay. But
and he also made their C and D receivers look like B receivers.
Yeah, well, he didn't give enough love to Sanzenbacher, so what you going to do?
So for that, Dave doesn't like him. But I mean...
No, Gruden, I can't wait to see what it pulls out on this as an offensive unit. But again, my thought is, okay, you just went out, you spent all, like, I don't want to say all your money. You spent a good chunk on getting DeSean Jackson to come to town. This offense is loaded. You're an offensive coordinator. So you and your young quarterback who's already had some injury trouble, some inconsistencies on the spot, and then you got the other side of the ball. That's not your specialty. That's kind of like a blind spot. We saw the damage that can do to head coaches like Lovey. Completely doesn't know what an offense is.
Or even like Leslie Frazier in Minnesota, defensive-minded coach. Look at our quarterback issues right now. Blaming that on Leslie Frazier.
So you got to be a little bit concerned if you're a Redskins fan about that defense and what they're going to pull out next year.
See, and one of the other things that I feel like the media is going to want to talk about, but it's, to me, not that big because we've never seen, like, with all the gang talk with DeSean Jackson, we've never seen a gun in his pocket. And everyone's like, oh, well, this is a risky move for the Redskins because everything that they had going on last season with just the name Redskins. And now it's like you sign a guy like DeSean Jackson who, he could be gang affiliated, even though on the SC conversation with Stephen A. Smith said, no, I am not gang affiliated.
Yeah, well, even if you were, you weren't going to come out and say it on ESPN. But no, this is just, the Aaron Hernandez fallout era of the NFL. Everything has to be looked into, over sensationalized to a point. Like, he hung out with somebody who was sent to jail for something, so therefore he must be in a gang because of these like existent ties. And I think they're just, every team now is on high alert. They all have their own personal detectives that work for the corporation, the NFL, for each individual team. So it's not like these guys don't know what's going on in your personal life. It's been dug into. So,
well, and I mean, one of the things that Stephen A. Smith and DeSean Jackson kind of talked about during that conversation that, to me, I was like, okay, I get where you're coming from, DeSean, but most of the general public is not going to see it that way. He was like, let's say I score a touchdown and I throw up some hand signs. That might look like a gang symbol to you, but that's just me telling, like, my boys that I grew up with in California, like, hey, this is for you. And this connects me to my close personal friends that I've had since I was in my teenage years, just trying to keep close to them, not any type of gang. And I'm sitting there going, I get what you're saying, but people aren't going to see it that way.
Exactly. Even him just saying that kind of felt like, almost sounds like a cop-out. I want to believe you. Everybody wants to believe him because we don't want to see another tragedy like Aaron Hernandez, how that went down. And you have to expect better out of these players in the NFL these days. They're always under the spotlight. They need to keep themselves clean of, honestly, the violence and the police. Just anytime you get brought in with police affiliation, it's like, oh yeah, and he got ticketed, he got arrested, he got this, he got that. It's almost become a standard, and it's like I think the NFL is trying to clean themselves up after seeing what happened. I mean, between the Pac-Man Jones, Ray Rice recently, and Hernandez, you got to be like, if you're the commission, you got to be like, we gotta work on some public relations.
Well, it's like the way I think, trying to just, and taking this and with me, relating it to a real world kind of association with us, is how many college kids now, no matter what job you're going to be, to me, I focus on teachers, because that's what I want to be. They tell us, watch what you put on Facebook, watch what you put on Twitter, Instagram, this and that. And it's like NFL players, sports athletes in general, they need to follow that too, because there was, like, in the SC conversation, they talked about he Instagrammed some photo with a friend that he used to have or still has from his teenage years, and that guy was affiliated with a murder of a 14-year-old. Yeah. And to the public, didn't look good, DeSean. Didn't look good.
No, and I think you're absolutely right. And you know how, like, every year we get the welcome to the NFL speech?
The rookie symposium.
Yeah, I think that needs to be moved to rookie symposium of, like, SEC school. Like, they need to have this done for every college. Like, you can't...
Coming into college?
I think it's necessary. I think it's common sense stuff that people should know, but they're obviously just dropping the ball on it. And, I mean, you're obviously not going to go get A-list names to do it every time, but it's something that needs to be done earlier and earlier, because if they're going to go through college and have that ego, have that swagger to them, what's going to stop them when they come to the NFL and they're supposed to just check their bags at the door? It doesn't. You've got to build that relationship up.
And after talking about this, it just popped into my head, like when he talked about like, oh, when I throw up a sign, that's for my friend. Well, look at how when the Miami Hurricanes had the big recruiting movement with Schnellenberger, and you had guys like Michael Irvin come in. Those guys were considered, quote unquote, thugs in the Miami community, and they come in. They weren't throwing up gang signs. They were just having some good old fun. The worst thing was probably in that game against Texas where shoot the guns. Shoot the Texas guns.
Yeah. I mean, they weren't respectful, but man, was it fun to watch. I guess is the story there. But yeah, I mean, you always have to be careful when it ever comes to gang-related gestures, I guess. And that's he tried to make it obvious that, no, I'm doing it for personal reasons. It's nothing to do with gangs. But you flip the channel, you see something on there like an NFL player throwing up gang signs. Mm-hmm. Who's to know? Who's to know?
Well, and I mean, going now to DeSean Jackson on the field, one of the best seasons for DeSean Jackson. I would say even a career season. Had the most receiving yards that he's ever had at 1,333, and he had 82 receptions, was targeted over 120 times. And now Washington, you look at that, they have two wide receivers that were in the top 10 receiving yards last season.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely. I guess the other thing that's really amazing is over 1,000 yards, even with RG3's poor play.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's truly something to be said. They've got, I mean, weapons galore. That's the thing is this offense isn't like DeSean Jackson coming in isn't going to be like they went from nothing to everything. No, they were pretty good last year. And now they just got that deep threat. They got that number one wide receiver who's going to open up the field, who's going to let RG3 just sling it up there because, let's be honest, the ball has been wobbly as we saw towards the end of the season. Mm-hmm. So I think absolutely DeSean Jackson makes this team better. But I think as far as his personality in the locker room is still a question mark. I mean, there are reports of him throwing temper tantrums at Kelly, just absolutely screaming at him several times in front of the entire team. So I don't know how well. I mean, you got a new head coach. You're going to come in. Everything's going to be happy right off the bat.
And to be honest, though, if I'm Jay Gruden, I'm not sitting there and being so nervous about that because you got to understand what happened where DeSean Jackson, Andy Reid, they probably had a nice close relationship. Andy Reid was basically like kicked out of town by the higher-ups for the Eagles, and I'm assuming DeSean Jackson didn't like that.
Yeah.
So when Chip came in, he had a target on his back because DeSean's like, well, you know what, screw you.
Or, I mean, it could be another case just like Chris Carter. He came into the league, absolutely amazing performance, but then cut mysteriously by Buddy Ryan and the Eagles. Didn't give a reason. Very similar to this time around.
Yeah, I mean, it's similar. It's not the exact same, but it's similar. And I feel like the one thing that will be the biggest difference in my mind in this was when Chris Carter with the Vikings played the Eagles. He was very respectful in his post-game interview, where I feel like DeSean Jackson will not be as respectful to the Eagles as Chris Carter was.
I'm not sure. I mean,
now that they're division rivals and all.
Well, yeah, but I mean, he had that interview with Stephen A. Smith, and he kind of sounded like he accepted it. It's done. You know, he didn't get the reason he wanted behind it, but
the bottom line. This is what I thought when I heard of the Stephen A. Smith, DeSean Jackson conversation. Yeah. It sounded to me like a bad breakup, where DeSean Jackson was that boyfriend that just got blindsided by his ex-girlfriend. Was like, when you look for those answers, like, well, wait, why is this happening? And then the girl just goes, I think we need to move on. And that's all they say. That's what it sounded like.
And it's exactly what he needs at this point. Maybe it's a wake-up call. He'll turn it around at this point, maturity-wise, realize, look, obviously, I mean, he's gotten absolutely zero support out of that locker room. Even Richie Incognito got support. Somebody on the Dolphins spoke up and was like, hey, he's a good dude. nobody on the Eagles is talking. Not a single person.
He's a good dude, but he's going to take a baseball bat and slam it in the front of his car.
I'm not the judge of character around here, but no, don't you think that's a little bit concerning?
Yes, and only because the Miami Dolphins were a complete circus show last year.
They were a dumpster fire.
Yeah, and with Philadelphia, I honestly feel it's about Chip Kelly wanting to kind of say, hey, you know what? I have an idea for this team, and DeSean Jackson's attitude is not a part of it. And maybe he can change things in Washington. And the big question to me is, can he? Because, we have so many questions about Washington already that now you add a personality like DeSean Jackson into the mix, what's going to go wrong?
Yeah, no, it's very volatile. But I feel like you got to give RG3 every chance to succeed right now because people are being like, well, is he a bust now? Is he done? They're ready to throw in the towel on him. So you give RG3 every chance to succeed at this point in his career.
Are you going to put in the All-American Kirk Cousins? All-American?
If they pull that trigger again, I don't know what. RG3's mind must be doing at that point.
Well, and to kind of move over to another, this is somebody who, for the Tennessee Titans the past few years, has been in kind of like, I'm going to say a limbo. And it's like you could tell that this day was coming. Chris Johnson, CJ2K, released from the Titans.
About time.
What was your thoughts when it was like, okay, boom, he's released?
How long before the Rams signed him? Honest first opinion.
Just the Rams? Just because of Jeff Fisher?
It seems like if a Titans player is released, Jeff Fisher hears the tree falling.
If a Titan player falls in the forest, does Jeff Fisher hear him?
Absolutely.
Is that what you're asking?
Yep, absolutely.
And to me, I hear that and I just go, okay, the Rams had a stud of a running back last year. He swept through fantasy and Stacy. I even picked him up. And
he went on a tear, yeah.
You're gonna take that. And you even had Richardson come in and do some good things for the Rams. Now you're going to add CJ2K. How's Stacy going to feel about that?
I don't care how Stacy feels.
So you're saying Stacy's not a number one back?
I'm saying he's the number one back. I'm saying
CJ's not? CJ's going to be number 2?
Yeah, absolutely. You need to change the pace back. CJ splits it out wide and absolutely kills people when it comes off the edge. He still has the speed. It's just the system was wrong for him with the Titans. Look at his best years, and you got to realize how that offense was functioning, and then his poor performance, his low average yard per carry. It seems like Jeff Fisher would throw a line out there. Obviously, there's other teams. The Jets is a team that a lot of people are like, oh, well, they could use him.
The Cowboys have been rumored.
But the Jets thing doesn't make sense to me. I think of what got him to the playoffs: smash mouth football and hard nosed running. Not absolutely
2K.
The opposite of him. And what got him that 2K name?
Running to the outside, picking up yards.
Dude is a monster outside of the tackle box.
One of the teams that I'm not saying that they're in the running for him.
Yeah.
But a team that I think should be seriously interested in Chris Johnson is the Atlanta Falcons. Last year they had DeSean Jackson come onto the team, complete dud, gets injured, doesn't do well, and then you're basically splitting running backs, but Jaquiz Rodgers was getting most of the time. So far this free agency, the Atlanta Falcons have done nothing with the running backs. I say, DeSean Jackson, your time is done. Get CJ in there. Or do a running back by committee with DeSean Jackson and CJ2K, because to me, DeSean Jackson cannot bear most of the load as a running back in the NFL. He's too injury prone.
He was the workhorse for a team for like 8 years. He just doesn't have the legs under him anymore. I think running back by committee is what they need. And I'll be honest with you, that offense was like it was one player off last year due to injuries. I felt like once that top a little bit crumbled from Julio Jones being off the field, you just watch the whole offense collapse.
Well, it wasn't the DeSean Jackson started it. Yeah. It's like he gets injured. Okay, you can tell this team isn't the same, but it's together for some reason. And that reason was Roddy White also messing around with some injuries. You have Jones. He's in there. He's able to play. Once he gets injured, though, boom, the wheels come off and the car just crashes.
Yeah, I mean, by all honesty, on paper, they shouldn't have been that bad.
They shouldn't have a top 10 pick, but they do.
No. So I think adding Chris Johnson would be a huge bump for this team. It would give them some explosiveness because I'll be honest, I don't see DeSean Jackson breaking one off for 30 yards anytime soon.
Mm-hmm. But, besides teams like the Jets, Cowboys, I said Falcons, you said Rams.
There's always the, let's see. We've got a possibly washed-up player. What's New England doing right now?
New England?
Why not?
I wouldn't
It's to the point of my understanding of Bill Belichick and Kraft.
He doesn't have to play this season.
It absolutely doesn't matter who you are.
He doesn't have to play. They still got Stephen Ridley. They still have Shane Vereen.
Yeah.
And they've got Bolden. I mean, LeGarrette is gone. He's in Pittsburgh. And
I figure if there's anybody who's similar in between Vereen, I mean, it'd be Chris Johnson. I mean, obviously don't have that that relationship built up that Brady has with Vereen at this point, where he's like the go-to. He turned into like little Wes Welker out there.
Yeah.
But it's still, you can't ever look past New England when it comes to older players or just wild card. That makes absolutely no sense. Why not? Yeah, sure, we'll take him.
Yeah, and usually, what did the Patriots do? They were one of the ones that signed Tim Tebow. I know they released him, but one of the things where it's like, really, they're gonna sign Tim Tebow, and I mean, you bring it up, I could totally see it happening. Would he ever see the field for the Patriots? Probably not, but I could see the Patriots making a move for him. But you're standing by the Rams, though?
I think the Rams make most sense. You do, right? You've got a couple backs then who are NFL quality, who can go to the distance at this point. You give yourself coverage due to injuries. You can never count that out. It makes tons of sense. And I think, to all accounts, Jeff Fisher and him had a good relationship.
Well, and yeah, that's one of the things where, I mean, even look at what happened when we were talking about DeSean Jackson last week, when we were talking about where's he going to go.
That's true.
The first team to come up, the Chiefs, because of Andy Reid.
Yeah. No, so maybe we're wrong here. Maybe I'm going with the too obvious choice. Maybe I should be like the Oakland Raiders. Because, Run DMC clearly isn't
honestly,
enough.
I'm looking right here on NFL Nation on ESPN.
Yeah.
Every single team is low for interest, except the Rams are at medium and the Jets are at medium. That's what they have.
Because they have the two most apparent needs for it, and I don't see them fitting out of the system. You know what? The one that makes the most sense to me? Surprise here.
Okay.
Broncos.
They did cut Sean.
Think about it. Monte Ball picked up a lot towards the end of last season.
Mm-hmm.
Dude can ball, but
can fumble too.
Yeah. That's a huge downside.
Can fumble.
But if you've got Peyton Manning out there, he's going to give you every chance to succeed because he gets up to that line of scrimmage. He sees what the defense is doing. So it's not like he's going to run you to 9 in the box. I mean, he's not stupid. He's one of the smartest quarterbacks of our age. So I think that the combination of the Broncos just throwing money at everybody available to help them get to a Super Bowl, and Chris Johnson doesn't seem to have any really hot suitors right now.
Except for if you're going to go with the general public's opinion of, buses are going to the Rams headquarters.
Yeah, I mean, that's just, a general assumption. But you said left field. I gave you left field.
That is.
Broncos.
And one of the things I think of is would he fit that system? That's the only question I have with that. But, I mean, other player news, not a releasing, not a signing, but a trade. Buffalo Bills get Mike Williams for a 6th-rounder.
What a steal. I mean, this is a legit number 2 wide receiver in the NFL.
Lovey being Lovey. Is this Lovey being Lovey?
It could be Lovey being Lovey. He doesn't have the attitude, that they really want. Okay, we can't use Shiano Men anymore. It's just Lovey being Lovey, I guess. Yeah. His attitude isn't great, apparently. He's got a bad reputation. So I think it's just him trying to clean house before he gets a first, group of his own players of his own choosing under him. he doesn't want any bad seeds there. So it's almost like offensive that Mike Williams went for a 6th rounder, though. That seems like dirt. I'll be honest. I understand the Buccaneers
Blaine Gabbert
lost
went for a 6th.
Yeah.
So that would mean Mike Williams and Blaine Gabbert are on the same level.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Mike Williams has been putting up like 700 to 900 yards each year, 8 touchdowns roughly. I mean, those are good stats for a number 2 wide receiver in any offense other than Peyton Manning's.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't understand. And the Bills come out looking amazing as long as Mike Williams doesn't absolutely implode.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, last season, obviously, Williams went through some injury troubles. And, I mean, if he can stay on the field, you look at the Bills, they have Johnson, Robert Woods, and now Mike Williams. That's a good 1-2-3 tandem to put up with C.J. Spiller and E.J. Manuel in the backfield.
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic help. I like their wide receiver core, I'll be honest with you. They don't have the biggest guys or the quickest guys, but like each one of them brings something to the team. And I'll be honest, Mike Williams plays a lot bigger than his stats give him.
Mm-hmm.
He has really great ability, just knowing how to hit the ball at the high point, how to go out and just make ridiculous off-balance catches. I think it's a fantastic pickup. My only concern here is as a Buccaneer. Okay, well,
the cap hit that's going to go on next season.
There's the year 2. Okay, so this year he's only accounting for just over $1 million. Next year it balloons up to $5.1 million, $5.2 million, and you have to really be like, okay, so even at a 1-year rental for a 6th rounder, pretty good deal. And if he plays up to earning that contract money, fine. If not, renegotiate or cut him. Either way, it's still a great deal for a 1-year pickup. I mean. But as a Bucs fan, you're like, all right, yeah, it was such a headache. We had to get rid of him.
You have Vincent Jackson now. That's basically your wide receiver core.
Yeah, so this guarantees that they're either they're going to move up for Sammy Watkins.
They've got to get at least 2 wide receivers in the draft.
Or they're going for Evans. So.
I feel like right now, the Mel Kiper has Mike Evans going to the Titans in the 1st round, but I feel like this shows, hey, we got to get 2, maybe even 3 wide receivers in this draft if you are Lovie Smith and the Bucs. And, I mean, there is some talent in this draft, but I feel like Mike Williams for a 6th, it puts it into...
I think he deserves at least...
a higher... I mean,
at least a 4?
I mean, don't get me wrong. He has never had an 1,000-yard season.
He's
been averaging around
number 2 wide receiver.
He's been averaging around 64.5 catches per game or per season.
Yeah.
And I mean, last season I'm going to put as it was an injury season. It was his first season that he didn't play a full year. But even more importantly, he was born in Buffalo. He's a Buffalo-raised guy, so maybe going back home going to shed some new home air for him. Yeah. Make him do a little bit better.
You can hope, but I mean, this offense starting to look pretty sexy on paper.
Well, and now kind of jumping into one of the last things. I know I want to talk about it, Dave. I'm positive that you want to talk about it. The NFL draft.
Absolutely.
And Mel Kiper this week came out with his 3 full-round picks, 100 picks total for every team, first 3 rounds. And I think one of the 2 important things that I'm seeing, Jadeveon Clowney, number 1 to the Titans.
Yeah.
Their quarterback is going to be Jimmy Garoppolo in the 2nd round. And then the Rams taking Sammy Watkins with that number 2 pick.
That doesn't seem to make much sense to me, but, it's Kiper, so who knows? The Sammy Watkins thing just seems like a stretch. I think they need to go out and get the help on the defensive end. Just take best available at the slot. I don't see the need. But maybe it's because I'm such a non-believer in Sam Bradford that I'm just whatever about it.
My question is, what about the, up until this time, Greg Robinson, the offensive tackle from Auburn, has been kind of that, no matter who we look at, McShay, Kiper, boom, he's slotted at that number 2. What's changing? Why is he no longer that number 2 in Kiper's eyes?
I think it's just they're trying to find the perfect match for a team now instead of going, well, he was our best available on the big board. And because, let's be honest, the Rams have several openings where, we could go one way or the other. It doesn't really have a huge impact. So that's why I felt they just kind of left that there. It was like, meh. It's highly possible that it could happen. But now this Sammy Watkins thing is like really trying to be like, all right, so if we're going to improve our quarterback play, we want to help him out. Let's go out and get ourselves a number one wide receiver. And that would give them some really good depth at wide receiver. But I just don't think it's A, necessary, or B, going to work because Sam Bradford is not your franchise quarterback.
And I mean, talking about quarterbacks, one of the more interesting things that I saw was Jacksonville's not going to, according to Mel Kiper, they're going to pass on the quarterback position in the first round. And our three big quarterbacks, Manziel, he's saying, is going to go number 4 to Cleveland. Blake Bortles will go number 8 to Minnesota. And Teddy Bridgewater dropping all the way to 11 for Tennessee. I looked at that and I was like, Bridgewater at 11, and second off, Tennessee's going to draft a quarterback?
Yeah.
Jake Locker's not their guy?
I'll be honest, I haven't seen enough to impress me to make him my guy. And I think they're pulling the string at the right time. I mean, they're on full franchise reboot mode right now. So it makes perfect sense to me that they can go out and roll the dice on somebody like Teddy Bridgewater. And don't forget, right before the new year, this guy was our number 1 quarterback. He just absolutely washed the floor with people. And now we're got him dropping down to 11.
Until he went up against Blake Bortles, and Blake Bortles beat him.
He still had a pretty okay showing. Not great, but Bortles had a beast day. No one's taking anything away from that. But still, it wasn't like he had the worst, showing ever. Come on. He went from number 1 to number 11. That's pretty huge.
It's
based
huge.
off of one loss and his pro day.
I don't think it's going to happen, though. I don't think he drops out of the top. I don't think any of the top 3 quarterbacks drop past 8.
Yeah,
it's not going to happen because out of the 4 teams that need quarterbacks, Houston, Jacksonville, Cleveland, and Minnesota, you're telling me 3 of those 4 teams aren't going to draft a quarterback with their top 10 pick?
I was going to say, so we're going to believe that Houston is going with Garoppolo and Jacksonville is going to hope Derek Carr is still there, number 2. Second round, Derek Carr. There's a chance. I mean, they were predicting him to go early second, but I still think that quarterback rush can hit, and we can watch what happened a couple years back. And people are just like, oh, we got to get a quarterback now. And we're going to watch them just fly off the board.
Yeah, and I mean,
You were one of the fans who got burned by that. You ended up with
Christian Ponder, who were still...
And Jake Locker, another one of those guys who was in the run.
Well, how it was Jake Locker was the guy that was projected to go to us. And then when he went to the Titans so early, that's when the Vikings were like, oh, we need a quarterback. And then, boom, we took Christian Ponder. And everyone's like, no, you can wait and take one later in the draft. And I do like what Kiper's saying, that kind of an attitude from Bill O'Brien and the Texans. Why not go with Jadeveon Clowney, who I know he has some question marks about his just overall fitness and if he can stay on the field, but if you can get defensive help like that on the outside and then get a quarterback like Garoppolo, who I would compare him kind of to Big Ben-esque. Big Ben
stature-wise.
Mixed with... No, stature-wise, he's Aaron Rodgers. I'm saying just like coming from the smaller school, because Big Ben came from Miami of Ohio. Yeah. Who followed Miami of Ohio? Nobody. And I know the MAC is a lot higher than the FCS.
Yeah.
But it's similar. Take an Aaron Rodgers style and size guy with the background of a smaller level quarterback like Big Ben, that's going to be Garoppolo.
So you're really hoping to strike lightning strikes twice here for Eastern Illinois quarterbacks. I mean, with all the success we saw out of Tony Romo, there's a chance, and we saw a lot of top praise for Jimmy Garoppolo. The thing is, everybody's like, oh, well, you got to wonder, if he was playing in a D1 school, would he be going in the first round?
He'd be a top pick.
Yeah,
absolutely. The way I see it, and this is because I kind of looked at his film a little deep, the only things that I feel like are weaknesses for him, played mostly out of the shotgun. So, I mean, of course, you're going to have to get used to playing under the center a little bit more in the NFL. And like many of the lower echelon quarterbacks, like the Garoppolos,
The middle, we should say middle.
Logan Thomas, even the Jordan Lynch's is, boom, very first read-esque type of a quarterback. But besides that, I love his quick release.
Yeah.
I love how he moves his feet in the pocket, and I feel like he could be an absolute steal in the second round. And that's why I'm glad that Kiper's being like, hey, Texans, take him in the second round.
And this matches up exactly with what Bill O'Brien came out and said, a couple weeks ago, where he's like, we're going to get a quarterback. We don't know when, don't know where, but we're going to get one. And as far as head coaches speaking, you got yours truly up in Minnesota coming out publicly and going, yeah, Manziel, nah, I don't want him. Don't want him.
I'm torn. And the only reason why I'm torn is because I love Manziel. I would love to have him, being a Vikings fan, I'd love to have him as a part of the team. The only thing is are the off-the-field issues going to be a concern? Because like many analysts, many coaches have said, in football, you have to be, and it's the way Zimmer explained it. You have to be first guy in, last one to leave type of a player.
Yeah.
Like the Tom Brady's, the Peyton Mannings. And if Manziel can be that guy, I'd love to have him on the team. Would I love to have him just regardless of not knowing the future? Yes, because I haven't developed that superpower yet. But I kind of feel like, hey, you know what? If Zimmer if a head coach doesn't feel like this is my guy, as a fan, I'm not going to want to force him to pull that trigger because
he is a defensive-minded coach who wants structure. You got a quarterback who basically is making his career off winging it. It doesn't sound like a match made in heaven to me. I'm sorry. It sounds like a quarterback who is not going to fit into the system, and you're going to be entirely reliant on that offensive coordinator giving him a little extra rope at the end of the leash.
And you say a quarterback built on winging it, the first thing I think of, if Mel Kiper's prediction comes true here, Manziel to the Browns at 4.
Yep.
The Browns are in a situation where it's like, whatever, wing it. Who cares? Nothing can go worse.
That's a great fit. But, he'll compete for that starting job.
And, I mean, speaking of the Vikings, Blake Bortles going to the Vikings with me, do I think Blake Bortles... I want to like Blake Bortles, let me say that. But there's something about Blake Bortles that makes me feel like maybe it's the Florida to Florida connection with Christian Ponder, but something tells me there's a little bit of a bust flag.
Yeah, I think that's because we only saw just a quick spark of his talent.
Louisville-Baylor game, that's it. That's all we basically saw.
And we're going completely based off of his size, his weight, his measurements. I mean, once you start having to use that as your rationale for why we're going to pick a quarterback, it kind of seems like a cop-out almost. It's like, I want the best playing quarterback. Well, that's Manziel. I want the top pro-ready quarterback. Well, that was Bridgewater. Well, he's the biggest and the strongest, and he did really good in these 2 games.
Well, one of the things I'm seeing is I've seen many articles out there.
Yeah.
And people are saying that Zach Mettenberger, quarterback from LSU, would be a good fit for the Vikings. And I look at that and go, okay, do we need to take a quarterback in the first round? Absolutely not. Like one of the things, Dave, you're a fan of the Chicago Bears in the NFC North as well.
Yep.
The Vikings have to deal with 3 big-time wide receivers in Calvin Johnson, and then 2 on your team, Brandon Marshall and Alshon Jeffrey.
Yeah, we got some big boys in the NFC North.
And I mean, right now, the only guy we have on this team is Xavier Rhodes, going to be going into his sophomore season. Why not go ahead and take a cornerback? And to me, Gilbert out of Oklahoma State fits the bill, where I feel like if we take him at that 8 overall spot, I'd be happy. And then we don't have to do what Kiper says, where we're taking cornerbacks in rounds 2 and 3. We can go ahead and get Zach Mettenberger in either 2, maybe. Mettenberger to me is more of like a 3-4 kind of a round guy.
He'll probably slide around A.J. McCarron in the third to mid-third to 4th round.
But
maybe.
I mean, there are tons of quarterbacks outside of these top guys.
You got the non-traditional quarterbacks out there like Taj Boyd, who, apart from having a phenomenal performance,
did great.
He just completely disappeared because they're like, well, he doesn't play traditional. his skills aren't refined enough. This is a project quarterback who could definitely be a starter down the line.
And one of the things I would kind of tip my my hat to is Chase Reddick out of Boston College. There has been kind of noise that the New England Patriots are interested in taking him later in the draft.
Yeah.
And to me, I go, okay, if the Patriots are interested in him, there's gotta be something with him. Take a look at him. What's the worst that can happen? Now, I'm not saying go ahead and draft him. I'm saying take a look at him. Maybe you want to take him in the draft. But, I mean, we also have...
I was to say, I mean, as far as scouting goes, when you look at the players who have been
Flip
drafted
of a coin.
the players who have been drafted recently by teams, how many of them are still with their team? How many of them are starting? How many of them are, all these stats? And to be honest with you, I went through it. I flipped through it quickly, but the Patriots have a great retention rate and are hitting their bang for their buck in the first 2 rounds. After that, it does diminish. 3rd round, they still get some good talent, and then it gets washy. But, I mean, let's be honest, what team doesn't?
there's always the...
But they have a very good percentage.
There's always the Tom Brady card, the 6th rounder.
Well, yeah, but they have a very good percentage of nailing those first couple round picks, which is kind of funny because for a while there, Belichick's whole rationale was, trade back, we don't need it. Trade back, nah.
Yeah.
But he went out and he's nailed these picks recently. So I think I'm with you. I mean, a little bit of insider. They're looking at him? Really? Well, why.
I would definitely take a look. And, to me, some other quarterbacks that would not be top 1, top 2 guys. And, Dave, I know you wanted to talk about him last week. We didn't get to talk about him. Well, we're going to talk about him this week. Garrett Gilbert had an outstanding pro day 2 weeks ago. And this is a quarterback where you're saying, Ricky, I kind of feel like this name is familiar. He should be, because he came in that national championship game when Colt McCoy got injured against Alabama, and
Texas.
And just Alabama shit all over him.
Yeah, he
4 interceptions in that game, I think was around.
It was brutal. That game was very, very bad for Texas fans. I mean, that was going to be Colt McCoy's going away present. Not so much, but he did leave.
The same year that we drafted Christian Ponder. Just saying.
Oh. Well, he did leave town. He went to SMU. Had himself a pretty
good pro day.
Pretty good pro day.
Pretty good pro day.
Just because no pass ever touched the ground.
Yeah.
I'd call it pretty good. You throw the ball enough times and not a single one. And you're throwing at college guys from a non-traditional power. I mean, SMU isn't exactly known for being a factory of wide receivers.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking, okay, this could be another one of those quick things where it's like, it's going to raise his draft stock, but do we really think anything's going to come from it? I think he could be a guy like we see in Ryan Mallett, who sits behind somebody for a couple of years, draws some interest maybe, and even if, he's just a permanent backup, that could be okay. I think he has what it takes to be a backup. I like that first year he got thrown to the Wolves, absolutely destroyed, and he had to kind of rebuild himself.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt like he brought himself up, learned from the experience.
You know what's very interesting that I'm seeing here on NFL.com?
Sure.
Gilbert's pro day was the best since Jeff George's pro day at Illinois in 1990. That performance helped George become the first overall pick for the Colts.
Jeff George.
That's not going to happen with Gilbert.
Yeah.
But it's just funny that the best pro day since Jeff George 14 years ago.
Which is interesting. Is it statistically the best? Because, as I say, did he do it in pads?
Did he do it in pads?
Did
he wasn't.
Did the ex-president of the United States, a former, I don't know why I said ex, a former president of the United States.
Okay, Johnny.
Was he playing rap music?
No, he wasn't.
No, he was down to business.
He was down to business. But, I mean, quarterbacks, I wouldn't be disappointed if we were like, okay, we're going to go later. But, I mean, looking later in the draft, one thing that I'm looking at, Dave, is your Chicago Bears. Mel Kiper says first round, you guys are going to go cornerback. You're going to go with Denard out of Michigan State.
Yep.
But then 2 and 3, you're going to go back-to-back defensive tackles?
I'm completely okay with that.
And one of them's going to be a Princeton guy, an Ivy League guy.
Ivy Leaguers can play these days. I'm sorry.
Fitzpatrick. Fitzmagic.
Say, why do you think you got that contract?
I want to see anyone from the Ivy League. I want to see what you got on the Wonderlic.
Ooh.
Perfect scores, right?
You better hope so. Otherwise, you're going to embarrass yourself. But no, Denard, absolutely love the guy. Love watching tape on him. Very smart. goes after the ball. And honestly, I was always leaning towards going secondary help right away.
Would you rather go, and I know that this is because Mel Kiper's doing this because he says the Rams are going to take Clinton Dix 1 pick before you guys, but who would you rather have, Denard or Clinton Dix?
Personally, Clinton Dix. But I don't think it's that much of a drop-off to Denard. I'll be honest with you. And I think Denard may actually be the better fit for this Bears defense, but I think Clinton Dix is the better player overall. So either way, I would absolutely love going for one of them. And you said going defensive tackle for the next 2 picks. Makes sense. We need to restock that line. We went out free agency, spent a lot of money, got better. Let's finish it off. And then I could care less if they go safety to finish it out.
Well, hey, I mean, some big news for Bears fans this week.
We haven't ragged on Chris Conte yet because
Chris Conte's going to be out for 4 to 5 months.
Bam.
Good news. Good news from Bears camps. A lot of Bears fans that I know on my Facebook feed were very happy about that.
Definitely.
I mean, he will be back around August, September.
Yeah, right in time for the start. But still, anytime without Chris Conte, it's good time.
And I mean, I'm looking deeper down this draft and some things that I'm seeing that are just popping out. A.J. McCarron, he's saying 2nd round pick to the Cardinals.
Yeah.
You have the Eagles now because of the DeSean Jackson thing. Marquise Lee in the 1st round.
And see, I feel like that is, again,
bit of the
it's an obvious pick, but I don't think it's the right fit for the team. I think Marquise Lee is not going to be the kind of receiver the Eagles need. I mean, I loved USC's wide receivers the past couple of years, but like he's just not the right guy.
Only one way that this works.
What's that?
Mark Sanchez starts.
Ooh.
Only way it works.
No.
Mark Sanchez starts.
I'm sorry, that's unnecessary. Okay, so here's my thought path here. Obviously, Kelly knows a lot about Marquise Lee. He played against him
I just think
for a couple of years.
I think Mel Kiper is also playing off of the Chip Kelly and Pac-12 guys.
That's true. It could be absolutely true.
Look at what he did with Nick Foles, a Pac-12 guy that he had to play against.
Well, we saw a lot. I think that's a big thing is these coaches coming out of college in their first couple of years lighting it up in the draft. I mean, Pete Carroll.
Well, they know the players.
Yeah, Pete Carroll emptied out that Seahawks roster. I mean, just completely cleared house. Went out, picked up free agents, absolutely nailed it in the draft. And honestly, I think Chip Kelly is doing the same thing. He knows who he wants. He's seen all the top talent in the nation. He's like, all right, I'm going to be watching this guy next year. I'm waiting for him. I'm going to pick him up.
Mm-hmm.
He knows what he's doing. He's got his game plan. Every other head coach in the league is like, all right, scouts, what are we seeing out there? Kind of. I think Chip Kelly has a lot of information already.
Well, and I mean, I feel like the biggest thing with the Eagles moving forward is how do we get past the DeSean Jackson release? Because right now, we didn't mention it earlier, but I'm going to throw it out now. NFL Players Association looking into that release and being like, why are you not saying why you're released? But to me, a wide receiver, Marquise Lee, I just did the research. I was wrong. It doesn't matter if Mark Sanchez didn't start because Sanchez graduated 2 years before Lee hit the field. So I'm just going to correct myself. I'd go with Kelvin Benjamin. I like Benjamin.
That's exactly what I was going to say.
Better than Marquise Lee. Not only is he taller, he doesn't drop the ball.
Yeah, there's a noticeable difference in drop count and production, but I mean, Jameis Winston, as far as production goes, that's obviously going to tip the scale. But no, I think Kelvin Benjamin, you get a big, tough guy, play wide receiver for you, and honestly, it makes absolutely perfect sense for this team. But you know what? If they want to go out and try to get another sub-6 foot flyer, be my guest.
I mean, come on. If you're comparing Lee to DeSean Jackson, I guess Lee would be a positive because he's 5'11", not 5'10", like DeSean Jackson. But I don't know. Maybe it's because even though I'm a Vikings fan, growing up here in Chicago, seeing what can happen when a team has 2 big wide receivers that you can just say, hey, throw it up, go catch it. I mean, come on. I was a fan, Randy Moss of the Vikings. Just throw it up, he's going to go catch it. I'm a fan of that in wide receivers, and I think I will be forever.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, after watching Moss's impact year after year, it's kind of hard to deny.
Well, I mean, even look at what the Bears have right now. Jeffrey, that's what I was saying before I went with a blast of the past. Jeffrey and Marshall, just throw it up there, go get it. That's what you guys have right now.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic to have that much faith in your wide receivers to just outwork the corners for the ball. I mean, I'm all for going for the big guy in this case. Marquise Lee has a home. I just don't think it's right. And I almost said Cleveland.
But you mean Philly.
I meant Philly. I'm thinking Cleveland should maybe drop back for him.
Maybe drop back for Marquise?
I think Cleveland could use Marquise Lee. I don't know how they're going to make it happen, but I want that pick. It's one of those fantasy draft picks, I guess, where I'm looking at the team.
You also have that Southern Cal bias.
I do. I want to find him a home that he's going to enjoy and actually get some use.
Can we find this poor Trojan a home? In the arms of an angel. That's what I'm thinking right now. No. But moving on, one of the teams that I feel like first 3 rounds, what are you going to do? They have the most draft picks in the 3 rounds with 6 total.
Surprise, surprise.
The 49ers. And this is, out of all the Niners picks in the first 3 rounds, this is what I see. You get a good cornerback in LaMarcus Hoyer out of Florida State. Dominique Easley, a nice defensive tackle from Florida. And wait, what? 3rd round, Logan Thomas? You going to go quarterback, or is he going to play tight end?
That's the interesting one, is Logan Thomas. I mean, 1st round corner, LaMarcus, no one's going to doubt the talent there. Proven commodity coming out of Florida State. I think it's a very obvious pickup because San Francisco needs help in secondary immediately. But after that, you're kind of like playing with house money. You can go out, you can take some risks, and that's why I think that Logan Thomas pickup is like, yeah, let's see what Harbaugh could do with him. It could be interesting. Other than that, nothing really impressive about their picks. It's just a bunch of very good players who have potential. But we'll see because San Francisco is just such a stacked team. I don't even know. They've got players who were 3rd round picks from years past, never even saw the field. So it's one of those things where San Francisco is just so stacked on picks. I mean, they can do whatever
they're giving
they
them
want.
up for Blaine Gabbert. Oh, sure, here, have a 6. We'll take Blaine. We'll take Blaine. We like him.
Yeah. No, they are they're in a good position because they have too much of a good thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me put it this way, Dave. Before we wrap things up, because we're kind of getting to that time, is there anything that we missed in this Mel Kiper first 3 round draft? Anything that you want to touch before we wrap things up?
I think I want to mention the fact that we're going with the big jump that I see is all these quarterbacks suddenly just dipping further and further back. And I wonder if that's a case of everybody. I remember when this first came out was, okay, we don't want a quarterback. We don't want these quarterbacks necessarily, but because it's such a quarterback-driven league, do we need one right away? And I feel like as people are watching more and more tape on the quarterbacks, they're realizing maybe they're not as good as we thought. Maybe they don't value up to that top pick. Maybe we could get away with going after somebody like Garoppolo. Maybe we go after a 2nd round or a 3rd round quarterback and just see what we get. Maybe we don't need to stretch ourselves out. We can go out and get a top defensive talent. Bookmark, just done. And we can kind of go by with B talent. See how that works out. Try to develop a quarterback. I know that's like unheard of these days.
Yeah, well, and another thing that, and I'm only bringing this up because I did see an article out there, was do the Vikings go ahead and just say no quarterback this year? We'll wait for our quarterback next year. And some of these teams, I mean, the Vikings kind of have that, I'm going to say very loosely, luxury. Because you do have a new coach. You have Matt Castle coming back, Christian Ponder. Maybe Zimmer will be like, okay, wait, I got to see what these guys can do because Leslie Frazier was a different beast. But off the top of my head, I'm thinking of quarterbacks that are going to come out next year. Miller, Ohio State, Mariota. Those are 2 guys. You got Brett Hundley in UCLA. Some big guys that are be coming out of the draft.
And let's not forget,
Jameis Winston could.
Jameis Winston is eligible, but will he? I don't know. He's saying 2 years. We'll see at the end of this year how he does. Maybe another national championship,
Maybe. I mean, with me, I'm sitting there and going, would a guy like Braxton Miller or Marcus Mariota be better to wait for? Because, I mean, I could put money down right now that Mariota and Oregon are going to be in good shape next year. That Mariota is going to put on a hell of a season next year en route to a successful season with the Ducks. And I can't help but think, now bringing him up, that smartest move by him was to say, nah, you know what, I'm going to stay in college. Because think about this. Could you think of this draft if you have Bortles, Bridgewater, Manziel, and Mariota?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that would absolutely throw things for a loop. But I don't know. I think Mariota has the most room to improve coming into this next year. And I think he's got to take that next step, to be honest, because we see a lot of these quarterbacks who are like, oh, yeah, preseason number 1, can't miss talent, and then what happens? He just kind of falls into the abyss.
Plus, how many quarterbacks from Oregon have made a name in the NFL?
There's a couple backups. Legit backups.
A couple backups,
yeah.
But none. I mean,
well, you're playing that up-tempo offense. You gotta
and
watch
it's a
that.
different style than the NFL. The NFL is kind of more.
I don't expect him to come and replace Nick Foles.
Yeah, there's a reason why they call it the pro style offense.
Absolutely,
because you play it in the pros. But I feel like there might be some quarterbacks next season that will be better choices.
So it's roll the dice for a year and go out and stack up your defense, because this is a truly deep draft.
That is,
and then we're gonna try to tank.
I hate the word tanking.
Oh, it's a dirty word.
It's such a dirty word. I can't. I don't like it. But yes, you could say tank.
Yeah, because you're thinking, like, if Winston comes out, I'm not missing that.
Well, I think of it. I mean,
I think Winston's a quarterback who, if the wrong team gets number 1, they're going to get like 2 first-rounders and then some.
Right now you're saying tanking and my mind's going to a basketball mode. Because when you say tanking, I think basketball for the, what new freshman's coming out this year? That type of thing.
Every year.
That garbage that I hate.
And that's the funny thing is, they have a chance. It's a lottery, people. This NFL is at least guaranteed. You're the worst, you're going to get worst,
Yeah, well, unless you're the Washington Redskins and say, hey, let's trade that pick. Oh, wait, we're still bad.
Washington, you poor sons of...
Well, that's going to do it here for the Onside Kick this week. As always, hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/MVP Sports Network. And follow us on Twitter at MVP Sports Real, where we talk about all the best in everything from the sporting world. Don't forget to also leave your comments down below. We love to hear what you guys thought of the show, thought about our opinions on the football world at large. And as always, have a good day, everybody.